The long-running tension between 50 Cent and Jay-Z has once again ascended to the forefront of cultural discourse, transcending the boundaries of simple hip-hop rivalry to become a profound case study on power, influence, and the clandestine mechanics of the music industry. What was once viewed as a standard competitive friction between two New York titans has evolved into a much broader conversation about the invisible hand that guides mainstream success. Over the decades, the narrative has shifted from who has the better flow to who controls the boardrooms, with critics and commentators increasingly scrutinizing how major industry figures manipulate opportunities and shape the public perception of artistry. At the center of these conversations are layers of allegations, personal grievances, and competing versions of history that continue to polarize fans and industry insiders alike, raising fundamental questions about the price of entry into the highest echelons of fame. Much of the contemporary controversy intensified as the digital age allowed for the resurfacing of Jay-Z's early business ventures and his complex network of relationships within the corporate music structure. Some critics have pointedly claimed that the foundations of these empires were built on the backs of artists and collaborators who helped establish these platforms, but were ultimately left behind, allegedly without full compensation or proper credit. These narratives often cite disputes over streaming royalties, label politics, and the selective distribution of major performance opportunities as evidence of a deeper, more systemic pattern of gatekeeping. While these claims often lack the definitive proof required for legal adjudication, they have become the primary fuel for a massive ecosystem of social media speculation, investigative podcasts, and independent documentaries that seek to unmask the true nature of hip-hop's elite. This debate is inextricably linked to the broader evolution of hip-hop as a global economic force and the regional power shifts that occurred during the early 2000s. As Southern rap began its meteoric rise and started to dominate the charts, many observers noted that the traditional New York hegemony was beginning to fracture. Former insiders have frequently argued that major record labels began to pivot their investments toward regions that offered higher profit margins and lower production costs, effectively cooling the support for the East Coast's lyrical tradition. According to these theories, the industry's kingmakers began to consolidate power around a few chosen icons while allowing others to fade into the periphery. It is within this vacuum that artists like 50 Cent were forced to become master disruptors, seeking national and global opportunities outside the traditional New York infrastructure in order to maintain their relevance and sovereignty. Another recurring and deeply analyzed topic is the carefully curated transformation of Jay-Z's public image from a Brooklyn street poet to a global statesman of industry. His supporters view this journey as the ultimate American success story, a visionary who successfully navigated the transition from the corners of Mercy houses to the boardrooms of the world's most powerful corporations. However, a more critical perspective suggests that this rise was not purely organic, but was instead a masterpiece of strategic engineering. This school of thought argues that through a series of high-level corporate partnerships and branding maneuvers, Jay-Z was elevated into a cultural stratosphere that shielded him from the typical volatility of the music business. His marriage to Beyoncé is frequently cited as a pivotal moment in this branding exercise, with commentators suggesting that the union created a royal family aura that sanitized his past and cemented his status as a polished, untouchable cultural icon. At the same time, the landscape of celebrity culture has become increasingly volatile and complicated by the omnipresence of social media. The digital era has removed the filters that once protected the industry's inner workings, allowing every rumor and allegation to be amplified until it reaches a fever pitch. In this environment, it has become nearly impossible for audiences to separate verified facts from viral speculation. Public figures are now subjected to a level of forensic scrutiny that looks back across decades, often stripping historical events of their original context to fit modern narratives. In recent years, the music industry has faced a reckoning, with growing pressure to address long-standing accusations of misconduct, the abuse of institutional power, and the exploitation of emerging talent. As more whistleblowers and independent investigators come forward, the public is starting to question the true extent of the influence held by those who sit at the top of the pyramid. Cent has strategically positioned himself as the primary antagonist to this established order, framing himself as one of the few entertainers with enough independent wealth and cultural capital to openly challenge industry elites. Through a relentless barrage of interviews, social media posts, and pointed commentary, he has made a career out of exposing what he describes as the hypocrisy and strategic silence within the hip-hop community. To his supporters, 50 Cent is a figure of rare authenticity, a man who refuses to bow down to the corporate structures that demand conformity. To his detractors, however, he is the ultimate provocateur who fuels unnecessary controversy to maintain his own brand's visibility. Regardless of which side one takes, it is undeniable that his willingness to speak publicly on taboo industry topics has forced uncomfortable conversations into the mainstream and kept the spotlight on issues that many would prefer to remain in the shadows. The larger issue at play here is not merely a personality clash between two wealthy celebrities. It is a reflection of the systems that govern fame, loyalty, and the architecture of perception. In an industry where a brand is often considered more valuable than the art itself, the concept of authenticity has become a battleground. The central question remains: who truly controls the levers of success in modern hip-hop? Is the dominance of a few individuals the result of organic genius and hard work, or is it a strategically manufactured monopoly maintained through exclusive connections and the suppression of competition? Furthermore, we must consider how much of what the general public believes about their musical heroes has been shaped by PR machines and behind-the-scenes machinations that the average consumer will never fully comprehend. As we look toward the future, it is clear that hip-hop has moved far beyond its origins as a subculture. It is now a complex intersection of international business, high-stakes politics, and psychological warfare. The rivalry between 50 Cent and Jay-Z is a microcosm of an industry that is currently wrestling with its own identity, struggling to balance the demand for transparency and accountability with the traditional desire for secrecy and elite protection. The evolution of this conflict suggests that the era of the untouchable mogul may be coming to an end, as the public's appetite for the real story continues to grow. Whether through the court of law or the court of public opinion, the mechanics of power in the music business are being laid bare, and the repercussions will likely redefine the industry for generations to come. Furthermore, the role of corporate entities in these rivalries cannot be overstated. Major labels, streaming platforms, and luxury brands all benefit from the larger-than-life personas of these icons, often encouraging the very narratives that lead to industry gatekeeping. When an artist reaches a certain level of wealth, they are no longer just a musician. They are an asset to be protected. This protection often involves the silencing of dissenting voices and the strategic blocking of potential rivals who might disrupt the market share of the established stars. This corporate-backed monopoly on fame is what many independent artists cite as the greatest barrier to entry in the modern era, creating a glass ceiling that only a select few are allowed to break through. In conclusion, the saga of 50 Cent and Jay-Z is a testament to the enduring power of narrative in American culture. It is a story about the pursuit of the American dream and the varying methods used to achieve and maintain it. On one hand, we see the path of the strategist who integrates into the system to conquer it from within. On the other, we see the path of the disruptor who seeks to burn down the gates and expose the architects. As the tension continues to simmer, it serves as a constant reminder that in the world of high-level entertainment, nothing is ever quite as it appears on the surface. The battle for hip-hop's soul is being fought not in the recording booth, But in the halls of power, where influence is the currency and the truth is often the most expensive commodity of all.